Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet on the 1st of July. And if I just, before I go into the agenda, just can I mention that we do have two work experience students looking in, and so welcome to you, and I hope you enjoy listening to us as we do carry out our work today. Thank you very much indeed. The first item on the agenda is the apologies for absence.
We have no apologies.
And the second item is the disclosures of interest. Does anybody have any disclosures of interest for today? No, no indications from anybody. Thank you. Councillor Fradgley.
I sit on the strategic partnership as from the Town Council, and the strategic partnership is mentioned here.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Coucher. Thank you. And the first item of things that are to be referred to Council on the Cabinet today is the minutes of the last meeting. To confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of June. Has anybody got any comments to make, or are we happy to sign those minutes as noted and accepted? Are you all happy to, is anybody going to propose it? Councillor Coles, and happy to second it? Councillor Curtis. Thank you very much indeed. So, happy with that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, all agreed, everybody? Agreed. Yeah. Right, moving on to the matters to be referred to Council, and the first one is the Warwickshire Local Council's Charter, and this comes under my portfolio, and this is that we adopt, recommendation is that we adopt the Local Council's Charter to govern the relationship between all tiers of local government in Warwickshire. The last time this was done was in 2015, and it sets out the ways in which all the various local tiers will work together. So it is a document that is across all the councils in Warwickshire. But one thing to note is that we are in an annex looking at the parish champion's role profile, which is the role that we underwrite here at the council, which is the person that works with parish councils if they can't work. If there's a problem between themselves, the parish council and the ward member, then there is a role for a parish champion role. But the recommendation to council is about just broadly the local council's charter. Is there anybody that wants to ask any questions about the charter that is printed in the papers, or have any queries that they want asked about? Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yeah, we of course welcome this document. I know that my colleague, Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, is going to speak in some depth. That was discussed at Overview and Scrutiny Committee. But I think we do need to pay homage to the fact that parish councils do have the highest level of local knowledge. And one of the questions and queries that I raised last week, and I don't think this was not disagreed with, is that as a council we need to find ways of really finding out how our officers, who are frontline officers, parish councils, how the parish councils are going to how we're going to interface properly with them. So that was one of the questions that we had. I know that Councillor Crump's going to pick up on that. And it's really, I suppose, what I'm looking for is the golden rules for interfacing, as well as trying to get parish councils to come to planning, and I think to training meetings. And I think that's really what I want to acknowledge, is that we can have all of this written down, but really it shouldn't be an us and them kind of scenario. It has to be very much more, I think, of working together with our parish councils. I'll actually let Councillor Crump speak in more detail about what was discussed, but thank you.
Councillor Crump, do you want to come in at this stage?
Yes, please, thank you. Yeah, we had quite a good discussion around this. Sorry, is that better? We had a good discussion around this on Friday, and I know that members of the Cabinet were there to see it as well. First thing we would suggest, and it's in your gift to do so, that a slight amendment on page 25, Annex 1, which is the Principal Council's Parish Champions role profile, which it rolls off the tongue easily. And we wanted to amend where it says the first point of contact for local council should be the local ward division member. However, in the event of ongoing concerns relating to dealings with the principal council, they should refer to the parish champion. What we wanted that amended to, if possible, the first point of contact for local council should be the local ward stroke division member. In the event of issues unresolved, they should refer to the parish champion. And that's to give the local ward member enough time to deal with things as well, because things sometimes take a long time due to things beyond their control. So I think that the meeting felt they needed reasonable times to do so. Obviously, we're not proposing that board members prevaricate and delay, but they do need to be given some reasonable time, and I think that was unanimous from the OSC. Yeah. So that's the first one. There was some issue or discussion around about parish councillors and training, and we felt that, again, communications between all the tiers and local government was always helped by good training and positive communications, and I think the two are probably interlinked. And we were asking that that representatives from parish councils, whether it be parish councillors themselves or the clerks who then can then feedback and train the trainer approach, be invited to send all training from the district council, but in particular emphasis on planning, which we think it could be advantageous for all parties involved. Again, communication seems to be a running theme, and we're saying that communications should be timely, particularly, again, I think one of the issues was around planning, but again, that's common sense. I think that's fair and reasonable. And two other points, and I'll finish off and I'll be very brief. Also suggested that the responsibilities of this council be clear with regard to how parish councils will be able to see that their voices are considered. I think they often are, but we don't demonstrate that well enough. So I think that needs to be, or I think the example was, well, yes, parish councils, we have considered your views, but unfortunately, because of X, Y, and Z, because of this legislation, etc., we're not able to do them. Or, yeah, it's just a little bit more explanation. It's a bit like when you do your homework. Well, it's good, but you could have had a little bit more detail on the end. And then the other thing is that the OSC would like to look at the charter and its impact, 12 to 18 months' time, not as an individual item, but as a general item, looking at communications generally throughout the council, and we didn't think that was unreasonable. So hopefully the comments are helpful, and our suggested amendment may be considered. Thank you.
I will bring the chief executive in, but actually, I think there's a difference between this, which is the local council's charter, which is agreed across all councils, and what we want to do within our own local council, our council here. And a lot of what you have said is already in the local council plan, including strengthening the parish forums, including strengthening the communications. We've not only do we use the parish and partners briefing at the moment, but we had the LGA in to give us advice on communications for the council, including communications with our parish councils. And the notice of motion that's to come to the council about supporting WALC with the civility and respect pledge, it was at their request that we help and support them on that. And training on planning has also been raised with parish councils has been raised, and I certainly support that as well. So I'll bring the chief executive in, who can talk a little bit more about the whole charter.
The whole charter. If I concentrate on the points that Councillor Crump raised, if I may, and that's the third bullet point underneath the principal the role champion. To be fair, I sat on a working group which had representation from all other local authorities within Warwickshire, apart from Nuneaton and Birdworth, because they don't have any parish and town councils in that particular district. I'm struggling I specifically asked for the amendment on that third bullet point to give us the clarity which was missing from the previous version of this document, which I haven't reproduced the previous version, but there was some ambiguity, and it was leading to parish councils being unaware whether they had to go in the first instance or not to the parish council champion or to the ward and division member. Unanimously around the working group, it should be the ward and division member in the first instance. I think everybody's agreed on that particular point. The second part of the sentence, and maybe we need a full stop and a capital H for however, was to say, look, if you haven't resolved the issue with the local ward and division member, then you raise it with the parish champion. I'm in your hand. If you wanted to change, I could propose it to the other 6, because, of course, we're going through the decision-making process at the moment. We're not the only people considering this. It'll have to be considered at the county and the other districts and within Walk itself. But I can assure you that was for the reason you've stated, and I've reiterated why that particular wording was there on that bullet point.
So, Councillor Crump.
Just come back briefly on that. I'm going to say, I don't think the committee was particularly precious about it. It suggested amendment. If it was going to go back and go with all the other councils, is it worth the effort? Will it make a material difference and create extra work? So, are we 100% precious about that? I don't think so. The only thing my concern is, and I think others expressed it as well, was that sometimes a member of the public or a council might not be happy with the way it's been dealt with, but the board member has dealt with it properly, and they might not have liked the answer they were getting. So that was the other thing we were concerned about. I should have probably expressed that earlier. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rice.
I'd just like to support what the OSC has suggested, because it seems to me that ongoing concerns is a very subjective thing, whereas matters unresolved is about the issues rather than the personalities, and that's what struck me as with this wording. Although I take what Councillor Crump has said, that we really don't want to make too big a deal of this if it's going to go back and take some time to resolve with the other 5 councils involved.
And that is the key thing. This is an agreement between 6 councils across the districts, isn't it? That's across the Warwickshire County Council and Walk, yeah. Councillor Guest.
I'll just stick my oar in as well. I, as the lawyer in the room, but I don't think there's a material difference in reading ongoing concerns and issues unresolved. However, if in, I don't know, 6 months to a year we find this to be a significant problem, can we look at it again?
I think that's a pragmatic way forward, that if anybody picks up any issues, but otherwise we face delay in bringing this in because we would have to go back through all the other councils. Councillor Wally Hoggins.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say is it's to prevent an unreasonableness, because we all know what's been going on with other issues from other parish councils, and it is to have those expectations of reasonableness. And that's really what underpins that. So I think, as you rightly point out, that we could revisit this and see how it goes. But again, it is that about making sure that there is a reasonableness of expectations within the parish councils for how quickly processes can be dealt with. that's what. But again, that's key to information, and whether the at the moment, I'm sure that the current parish champion would be very skilled at interfacing with the ward member in any event, and it is, you know, that's the message really. Thank you.
Councillor Gist.
I mean, I agree. I think we all know what we're trying to get to, don't we? And of course, when you're talking about reasonableness, then we're sort of getting into conduct as well. And hopefully, she says, but everyone knows how they should be behaving, don't they? So I think we're getting to conduct issues at that point.
The key thing, though, is that we need a local council's charter, an updated one. This has not been updated since 2015. But what we need to do is to show, because it's not only the local councils across Warwickshire, but in this council as well, we have committed to improving communication, improving consultation with each other, giving support and help to parish councils, and then looking at how well we are doing. So there's quite a big agenda there. It's not just about the parish council champion. It's about very, very much more about how we communicate, how we support each other, and how we work and consult with each other as we go forward. The points that have been made are very well made, but I think I would like to put the recommendation to the Cabinet and then on to the Council that the Warwickshire Local Council's Charter in Appendix 1 be adopted to govern the relationship between all tiers of local government in Warwickshire. And then we can have a look at if there are any issues that arise with the Parish Council champion as we go along. But initially, it is very important that we give WALC and all our parish councils some certainty about how we want to work with them. So I'm putting that recommendation to you, and I will propose that. Would somebody second that, please? And that, Councillor Gist. And this will be referred to council, so there will be a chance to be able to discuss it further at council, should anybody wish to. Are you all in support of that? All agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on then to the next item, which is a matter for decision by the Cabinet. And this is about the Stratford-upon-Avon Strategic Partnership Strategy and Prospective, which is prospectus, which is to consider a draft town centre strategy for consultation by the Stratford-upon-Avon Strategic Partnership. And this comes under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher.
Yes, press the right buttons. This matter has been debated and discussed and workshopped by the Strategic Partnership, who've done, I think, a pretty good job in terms of distilling many of the issues that affect the town centre. What they're proposing is to go out to public consultation. Stratford District Council is a key member of the partnership, and clearly we need to endorse it for the purpose of consultation. I'm sure none of us are happy with every single word in it. Indeed, there are some individual details that I think are a little uncomfortable and would certainly want amendment. But I think for the basis of consultation, I think this is a pretty good document, and I would recommend that we approve it and go out to consultation.
And just to ask the question and strengthen it, this is a consultation, and all the partners would have the chance to be able to submit any further, and residents of the town would have the chance to be able to submit any changes or anything that they want as part of that consultation. Is that is correct? Yeah. So the recommendation, would you endorse and propose that recommendation?
So I'll propose that recommendation, Chair. Yeah.
And we need somebody who will second it. Councillor Coles to second it. So anybody want to make a comment? Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I mean, I welcome this initiative. I think it's very, very important. But just a sort of couple of comments. Section 3 states that there's an evidence base in the appendix, but I must admit, looking through the appendix, there are lots of bullet points in there, but I'm struggling to find what I would consider to be an evidence base. So I'd like to see that being developed more fully. And I'm just I think there's, further on in the document as well, it does say it wishes to ensure diversity of appeal, being inclusive, accessible and welcoming to all. But the group outlined on page 28 doesn't really seem to sit well with a very diverse group appealing to all. You know, where is the voice of the newer communities in Stratford being represented? Where is the voice of youth in Stratford being represented? So I welcome the initiative, but I think it does need further consideration. Thank you, Leader.
Could I suggest that the various organisations that exist in the town are be made aware that this is a consultation and that they can input any changes to that consultation if they feel that it isn't as strong as it might be, or there is any areas that are lacking. Councillor Wally-Huggins.
Yes, I acknowledge that this is a consultation document, but notwithstanding that, there is the detail in this begs the question of what financial resources or input will be required from this district council, and it's ultimately from its taxpayers across the district. What sort of input are we going to be required in financial terms and officer time, really, in order to implement the proposals here? And I think that moving forward, as part of the consultation process, that our residents do have a right to know how much funding is going towards that. I'm not expecting you to have that answer now, obviously, but I do think it has to be a factor, and that our residents need to know how much of their money is being used on the town centre. Thank you. As it is a wide and diverse district. Thank you.
It might be worth looking at paragraph 5.3.1 because it says it's not a Stratford-on-Avon district document, but that by working together as a partnership, the council is using resources efficiently and effectively by making sure that we work with the whole range of partners that is listed on page 28. But there will be an element for us, but Councillor Karcher.
The strategic partnership is not a delivery body, and I think we have to be very clear about that. We, as a district council, are a delivery body, as is the county council, and to a degree the town council as well. So I think that is going to be about implementation. I think the whole purpose of this strategic document is hopefully to get alignment between the various tiers in local government and all other interested bodies, so that we've got clarity from Stratford about what we are aiming to do, what we're influencing others to achieve for us. Clearly, obviously, we can't do a great deal without money, and that money will need to be found by whoever is the delivery partner. But the strategic partnership is not a delivery body, and I think it's really important that we do emphasise that. It's in the report here. This is about ensuring that we've got alignment and we've got agreement, and hopefully we're working on a single purpose in relation to Stratford.
I acknowledge that, but I still would like to know the financial implications in the fullness of time that we will be putting into this. Thank you.
Could I just ask one last question before we go to the recommendation? Could this form the basis of any application to government under any kind of, we've had bids in the past, but is this something that could form a basis of that kind of application at all?
I think getting a single view is extremely helpful in dealing with government, and so I'm sure if we can become all wedded to this particular strategy, I'm sure that will be really, really helpful in terms of our onward discussion with the government, whatever that is.
Councillor Passingham.
Yeah, I appreciate what Councillor Couch has said about this not being a delivery body, but in particular to do with the climate change implications, there seems to be a lot of climate change implications in what is intended in this strategy, and surely somebody ought to be monitoring or looking at the climate change implications of it, particularly things like the transport plan.
At this stage, it is a consultation on a strategic partnership document, but there will be action plans that will come from it, and that's the kind of stage when we would, the various other delivery bodies, we're only one part of this partnership, would have to look at all that. The Deputy Chief Executive, you want?
Just making sure you hadn't missed Councillor Patterson.
Okay, all right, thank you. So at this stage, it is a consultation on behalf of the partnership. And the partnership is listed on the top of page 28. There's quite a number of people that are involved in this. And so at this stage, we are asking for a recommendation that the content of the draft strategy prospected is endorsed for consultation by the Stratford-upon-Avon Strategic Partnership. I'm happy to propose that. Anybody wants to second that? Councillor Coucher. And are we all in favour of that going out to consultation? Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed for that. The next item is the Productivity Plan 2024 on pages 47 to 60, which is to consider a submission of a plan to the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities at Government. And this comes under Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, on 16th of April 24, the Minister of State for Local Government wrote to local authority chief executives about local authority productivity plans. As it says in the paper, document is attached, a copy of the letter is attached to Appendix 2, and Mr. Burrell has provided a comprehensive but concise productivity plan in response, which I'm sure we've all read. I'll draw Cabinet's attention to bullet points 1, 2, and suggest that these key issues are already being addressed through our Council Plan and Change programme, see point 531. The response required by the Minister was for a high-level document, which Mr. Burrell has provided. Personally, I'm not sure we need advice from a government that has squandered billions of pounds in dodgy contracts on how we best manage our resources. This administration is determined to ensure that we manage Council's finances in the most cost-effective manner possible, whilst delivering the best possible services to our residents.
Can we bring in Marcia Eccleston at this stage?
I have to tell you that is, and Councillor Curtis, you and I enjoy a pleasant relationship. You and I enjoy a pleasant relationship. However, we are in purdah at the moment, and that is most uncalled for. And I'm disappointed that that comment has been made.
I'll withdraw that comment, with apologies.
Continue then without any reference to any general election.
A number of more detailed suggestions were made by Councillor Wally Hoggins and other members at overview and scrutiny on Friday, and I'll certainly welcome the opportunity of looking at more detailed proposals going forward. I won't make my next point either. I'd like to propose the Cabinet the recommendation that the productivity plan attached at Appendix 1 be noted and submitted to the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Thank you.
I'll bring in the Deputy, bring in the Chief Executive at this stage, not the
Deputy Chair, well, did something happen in the last week? Chair, sorry, and apologies to Richard and to David on this point. I've just reread the letter, which is attached to Appendix Appendix 2 to the report, and cross-referenced that with the recommendations. It's quite clear that there has to be member endorsement. So I think the word noted would be insufficient. So if we could potentially, with your permission, change the recommendation be endorsed and submitted, then I think we'll be on the right side of the line then. Apologies.
Thank you, David. Yes, so the productivity attached at Appendix 1 be endorsed and noted and submitted to the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities.
It is worth, I hope that the message gets through that is in page 4 about, because we are feeding back about what government can do to actually help local government, and there's some good comments made there. We certainly need to differentiate between efficiency. There is a certain person called Peter Drucker, who is a management thinker, and he differentiates between doing things right and effectiveness, which is doing the right things. So I think that's probably a good comment to make at this point of time. So really, we've just got a recommendation, and Councillor Crump.
As Councillor Curtis mentioned, we discussed this at OSC in quite a bit of detail. And you're right, we're talking about doing the right thing at the right time. One of the suggestions we felt there could be a portal for councillors and officers to report any inefficient processes which are identified. Again, let's get them out in the open. Another real point, and to be fair to Councillor Curtis, we were on the same piece of paper. He was reading my writing somehow, and we discussed that on Friday, that the council should be mindful that whilst improving efficiency, not to exclude those residents with limited accessibility. And we were pragmatic to realise that sometimes by improving efficiency, it would give more officer time to deal with the residents with greater needs. So it is a fine balance, but when we're concerned, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So let's be efficient, but we've got to meet the people who have trouble accessing our services and who do need them. So I think that was another point. I think Councillor Curtis and I were on the same page on that one. We also thought that it could be a future OSC work programme looking at the details of how the plan will be put into practice and how productive the plan is. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments? Councillor Coles.
Oh, yes. sorry, a bit TV corner over there. The only thing I think, there are some very good suggestions here. I think I would like to say that I feel very confident that our officers and our staff, and certainly where we work with our councillors, pretty jolly efficient, and is very, very mindful of how we use the budget anyhow. And I think that time should be spent actually getting on with that rather than writing documents on how we're going to be doing that. And the other thing that I often hear this thing about a portal for communication. We've actually got a portal for communication, and that's email to the councillor or the portfolio holder or the member of the officer involved. And I would hope that we have been doing that all already, because we really don't want to create a sort of localised cones hotline or something like that, which would draw us away from actually doing the work and getting on with it.
And, I think if the message gets through that, we are extremely efficient and lean, and local councils are lean because we've had budget cuts for consistent, but also we've had 7 years of single year settlements, etc., which doesn't exactly help with planning, and then the government grant scheme. So if that message gets through, then that we should be able to make sure that we're even more efficient as we go forward. So thank you very much indeed for that. I've got a recommendation before us then that the content... Sorry?
Yeah, the only thing, coming back to Councillor Cole's point about the portal, we said about the email, but the portal would be designed to generate other people's, once they saw people's ideas of reports of inefficiencies. If that portal was there, there's a possibility that it would generate other ideas, because sometimes people think, oh yeah, I didn't realise about that. So I always think with communication, it's better to have too much than not enough. And that was one of the reasons we felt the portal could be appropriate. And you never know, with the new, we might have a 3-year settlement in future years, but I don't hold my hopes on that at the moment.
We have then a recommendation before us that the productivity plan attached to Appendix number 1 be noted and submitted to the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. Endorsed. Sorry, yes. I'll make a note of that. And Councillor Curtis, are you proposing that one?
Yes, Leader, I am.
And Councillor Coles, I'm happy to second that. And are we all happy to endorse that?
Indeed,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, all happy to endorse. Yes, we've got the right wording. So thank you very much indeed.
I need to question again about PERDA, and again, we've talked about the one-year settlement in disingenuous terms, and I'm surprised I'm having to repeat myself yet again about this issue. Thank you.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins, I was merely reading what was in the paper about the single-year settlements. So thank you very much indeed for that. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding the pre-election period, just a general reminder that all councillors need to be mindful of the pre-election requirements. There was a point made a little bit earlier about the 7-year single settlement, as I understand it, and the reference to that was factual, but there was a discussion earlier which was not factual and would fall under going against the pre-election rules. And so the underlining request now of all councillors, please, is to adhere to the requirement that you've all had and reminders that you've had by email from our RO, the Chief Exec, around requiring adherence to the pre-election rules. Thank you.
That point is taken. We will stick to the factual things that are on the paperwork. And as you pointed out, some of the comments that have been made are factual and straight from the paperwork, but we will stick to that. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And the next item is on the annual Treasury Management Review, and this is under Councillor Curtis's portfolio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents or provides members with the annual Treasury Management Review of activities for 23-24. I'd like to thank Katie Sylvester for preparing the report. The recommendations are that the actual 23-24 Prudential and Treasury indicators in the report are approved and that the annual Treasury Management Report be received. I'd ask Cabinet to note points 113 and 114, which outline members' responsibilities, notably that the regulatory environment places responsibility on members for the review and scrutiny of Treasury management policy and activities, and that this Council confirms that it has complied with the requirements under the Code. Point 123, as outlined in other reports, which I'll come on to later, interest earned in 23-24 was 4.22 million, a surplus of 3.2 million over budget, and this was due to the considerably higher than anticipated interest rates. Evidence base is on page 62. The Council employs the services of Link Group, who advise on Treasury management and investment matters. They issue interest rate forecasts and advise on Treasury management practices and procedures, and possess a wide expertise across this sector. And the investment policy is on page 83. The Council's investment policy is governed by DLUC investment guidance, which has been implemented in the annual investment strategy approved by the Council on 27th of February 23. And I just mentioned 8.2, which confirms that the investment activity during the year conformed to the approved strategy and the Council had no liquidity difficulties. Happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask of Councillor Curtis? I think you're going to get away with that rightly, Councillor Curtis.
In which case, Leader, I propose that the actual 2023-24 Prudential and Treasury indicators in this report are approved and that the annual Treasury Management Report be received.
So, Councillor Curtis, you're proposing that. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Coles is happy to second that. Put that to the vote then, that the indicators be approved. That's recommendation 1, and that the annual Treasury Management Report be received as recommendation 2. Are we all happy to endorse that? All agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on then to the next item, which is the capital outturn 2023-24 and capital slippage on pages 83 to 108. Councillor Curtis, this is your portfolio again.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank Nicola for preparing the report. It comes with the recommendations that the capital budget for 24-25 be increased to £5,827,100 £112, as detailed in Appendix 1 in 2023-24 for slippage listed in Appendix 3, financed by the capital receipts as budgeted for. The most significant slippage items and amended budgets are detailed on pages 88 to 91 and in Appendix 3, on page 107. And any approved slippage will be monitored and reported as part of the 2024-25 Capital Budget Monitoring Report. The draft outturn position has been prepared by comparing the actual and accrued capital expenditure against the current budget for 23-24. The outturn report, Appendix 1 on page 95, records the slippage against the budgets as they were set and reported through 23-24. Appendix 3 on page 107 reports the slippage amounts against the heads of service responsible. And Cabinet will see that the total slippage is recorded correctly at £5,827,112 in both appendices. Last July, some Cabinet members did express some concern about the amount of slippage, and perhaps we'll be pleased to see that the amount of slippage this year has been reduced by nearly £6 million. Previously, last July, it was just over 11 million, and now it is 5.8 million this year. And some of the significant items no longer being slipped include the District Council's share of refuse vehicles, which last year was 4.5 million. 2.215, the property maintenance programme has also fallen rather behind, partly due to COVID and other staffing factors. And rather than continually slipping just over 300,000 year on year, has previously been the case with obvious consequences on the maintenance programme, it's proposed that we now put in place a planned maintenance programme over the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to raise on the paperwork at all, on the report that is being given? Are we all happy?
Yeah.
All right. With that, no. If there is any questions, Councillor Curtis, there's nothing. You're happy to.
Yes. In which case, I propose the recommend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Chief Executive, I think, wants to come in.
Yeah, and it doesn't affect the recommendation because the slippage request is the same. I'm just looking at the table on page 90. The last line of that, where Lighthorn Heath Village Hall has a slippage request of 12,122 into 24-25. The table is currently showing that the budget for that year is only 4,721. As I say, it doesn't affect the request from the Cabinet today to approve the slippage, but I think the budget for 24-25 will be in excess of the 4,721 for the coming year. But as I say, that's not fundamental to the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland. I'll clarify that with the Section 151 officer.
Subject to clarification that the recommendations, as you say, are not altered by that. So are you happy to propose the recommendations, Councillor Curtis?
Yes, thank you, Leader.
And I'm happy to second it. Anybody who wants to second? Councillor Grocott? And are we all happy to endorse? Agreed. All right, agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on now to the draft revenue outturn, which again is Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with the revenue outturn position for the year ended 31st of March and to note the allocation of funding to the earmarked reserves. I'd like to thank Jessica Lale for the report. The final budget, first of all, 1.3, final budget monitoring report of 4th of March predicted a favourable outturn position of £1,651,940, and the actual outturn was a favourable £3,277,024, an improvement of £1.6 million. As I mentioned in the previous report, this is largely due to unexpectedly high interest rates. Given that interest rates are now falling, it's unlikely that this additional bonus, if you like, will be repeated on anything like this scale. The earmarked inflation reserve remains at 1.5 million. This is on Appendix 4, page 123. And given the reduction of inflation to near the Bank of England's target of 2%, as I proposed last year, we may consider releasing some of this reserve to fund some of our policy priorities. So I'd ask Cabinet to agree that the favourable variance of 3.2 million is added to the general fund balances. Just going to mention off-street parking. There is an unfavourable position of 130,000 in 23-24. There was also an unfavourable variance of 380,000 in 22-23 and a very large unfavourable variance in 21-22. The income from off-street parking has continued to rise from 2.6 million in 21-22, 2.8 million 22-23, 3.3 million 23-24, and we're budgeting for 3.4 million in 24-25. I just mentioned the off-street parking because in some respects it's not just about the revenue from parking, but that parking in the town centre may provide a sort of useful barometer for the wider economic health of the town. I'm just going to return to the unexpected windfall. This administration will not act in haste. We're not, if you like, kids in a candy store, but we will take time to consider carefully how best to invest for the future, to increase resilience in an uncertain world, and to mitigate any adverse impacts of further cuts to local authority spending. We have an opportunity to invest in new technologies, to increase capacity, including partnerships with the third sector, perhaps more capacity building with parish councils, to increase income generation, and to develop service improvements. We have an extraordinary opportunity. So, I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions that anybody wants to raise? Councillor Wallace-Higgins.
Yeah, here we go, sorry. It's really just a point about regarding the off-street parking. You know, one of the figures that you gave us there, I think, was to do when we had COVID, and again we had, you know, we just don't even talk about how poor that was at that time, obviously. But one of the things that, you know, we can see here why there has been this cash windfall, and that is due to the draft capital budget outturn. I'm particularly looking at, as I would be from Brailes and Compton, the page here of the carry forwards from some of the SIL monies. I hope I've got the right document with the right issue here. And there are some substantial sums of money here that are still unspent and unresolved. I asked the monitoring officer to monitor carefully what I'm saying here because I'm trying very hard not to become political with this. But at the end of the day, we are all councillors representing our residents, and the fact that there is £857,173 here, give or take my maths, which is allocated for a new GP practice at the Ellen Badger Hospital. Clearly we're not over the line there with that issue yet either. And my question is really, is there any way of perhaps using those interest payments for those large sums of money, and perhaps thinking carefully that with rising costs, for example, that could be used to maybe enhance the offering for those items. So therefore, I believe that those sums of money for the Ellen Badger Hospital have been in that pot of money for quite some time now and allocated but not yet spent. So and within that time, costs have increased. So what I'm trying to ascertain, is there any way before, and I know you're going to be prudent in your sweet shop, but what I'm trying to say is that can we make sure that if sweeties are to be given out, that maybe we need to revisit some of these figures and whether or not we could say that the interest that's been accrued on that could be gone to that to try to get these matters over the line. Forgive me if I'm speaking in tongues. I'm just trying very hard not to break purdah here. All right, I'm sure that there are other councillors in this room that understand precisely what I'm adhering to here, and I'm very happy to take this offline, but I'm also generally, globally, slightly concerned about the continued underspends or not spent at all with some of these SIL allocations, and I do think that that is something that we could address outside of this meeting today, maybe going forward.
Councillor Croucher, I think you could perhaps add to something about the SIL allocations, maybe.
I'm grateful to Councillor Wally Hoggins because actually she's mentioned something which I've mentioned privately to the portfolio holder. I'm concerned that some of our reports here are very comprehensive, have very long lists of all the various allocations there are there, but actually we're not highlighting those where we need to take action. And I'm very keen that for the future we're actually beginning to highlight those, particularly on 106 agreements, to make sure that we don't lose any money at all just through time going past. And also, I think it would help us focus as a council on those areas. I mean, you've mentioned the Shipston Hospital, which I think we're all extremely concerned about. I attended, as did Dave Passingham, the large public meeting that took place in Shipston last week or the week before. Shows just how concerned residents are about what is happening there. But I think it would be helpful in terms of the presentation of the papers going forward. And I know that the portfolio holder is sympathetic to that, so that we can really highlight which those areas are. And as appears to be in these papers, at least one instance, we may be in danger of losing some 106 money, which is something we just desperately do not want to happen.
Thank you. That is valuable, and we can come back to that as an issue. Councillor Crump, was there anything that came from overview and scrutiny?
Yeah, just got the brief things. Again, we highlighted, we noted that the increased amount of investment interest. When I used to be in the business, that was sort of like fortuitous. So again, it's like. It's good. It's positive that it needs to be spent properly and not just thrown away in the sweet shop, to use Councillor Curtis's analogy. What we've noticed on page 110 and 111, there are 6 items related to staffing, 5 favourable and 1 unfavourable. And when I'm including temporary employee costs in terms of staffing as well, just some poetic licence there. 5 of the favourable ones, when you add them up, they make a significant amount in terms of the salary budget. So 1, we are concerned potentially, have we capacity? 2, what has been done to look at these vacancies? And 3, are the vacancies causing any stress and additional work for the staff or employees who are left who are having to cope with the vacancies? So it's just a point that we'd like to keep an eye on. We all know that we are working, as Councillor Cole said, she'd rather get things done rather than just write about them. And we all know how efficient the staff are. But they can only be as efficient as if they've got the capacity and resources to do it. And they're having to do their own work and potentially somebody else's or cover. I'm not saying there aren't valid reasons for that. I think we just need to make sure we're, 1, protecting our staff's well-being, and 2, making sure we've got the resources to be able to respond efficiently and effectively to our customers as well. Thank you. And residents.
Thank you for that. And some of these issues were raised at the Employment Committee, when we were looking at the staff strategy as well. So I think that some of those your comments have already been addressed, but there will be more addressed as the Employment Committee and the staff strategy comes forward. Councillor Curtis, are you proposing the recommendations?
I'd like to propose the recommendations on page 109, One, that the draft 23-24 outturn figures and explanation of the variances be noted. That the favourable ballot variance of £3,277,024 is added to the general fund reserve balances, and that the amounts allocated to the earmarked reserves be noted. Thank you, Leader.
And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Couch is seconding it. Okay, and are we all happy to endorse that? All agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on then to the next item, which is the capital budget monitoring. And lo and behold, it's Councillor Curtis again.
We're nearly there. We're nearly there. Thank you, Leader. This report provides the Cabinet with details of the capital budget monitoring for period 1 to 2, so from the 1st of April to the 31st of May 2024. As stated, this report only covers the first 2 periods of the year. I don't really propose to make any further comments on it. I'm happy to take any questions, but we are very early on in the year at this stage. So if there are no queries, I would make the recommendation that the position on capital expenditure and income for the period 1 to 2 of 24-25 is received. Any issues identified for further consideration to be addressed by a further report to the Cabinet or to the portfolio holder, myself.
Do we have any questions on that? If not, I will ask for a proposal. Are you happy to propose that?
I would propose the recommendation that I've just read out, in fact.
And any seconder for that proposal? Councillor Gist? And do we endorse it? All agreed? Thank you very much indeed. And the next item is the revenue budget monitoring period 1. Councillor Curtis, over to you.
I'll be quiet after this, I promise. Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Crump. I'm sure you may wish to make a comment. So this summary, similar to the previous report, is to update the Cabinet on the position of the Council's revenue, expenditure and income as at period 2, 31st of May 24, together with an estimated net outturn position for each service for 24-25. Just looking at 1.2, just make a couple of points in here. There are a couple of write-offs at 1.23. As previously, Mr. Barlow assured me that these write-offs are within expected parameters and are primarily the result of either personal bankruptcy or moving on, leaving no forwarding address. If residents do return, efforts are made to chase outstanding debts as required by the District Council's constitution. Just a breakdown of the figure of £81,567.80. It represents approximately 2 months' debt for a Band D property. So although it's a substantial figure broken down across those 40 properties, I think it's not unreasonable. Just a slight correction. You'll see 1.2 says budget monitoring estimated outturn. The write-offs are not an outturn estimate for the year. They're in slightly the wrong place. So they are the actuals for periods 1 and 2 with a slight end of year adjustment. Is that correct, Richard?
They're just actuals for period 1 and 2.
Yeah, they're actuals for period 1 and 2. They are not an estimated outturn for the year. Or outrun for the year, as I've written down here. 131 and 141, again back to off-street parking. Shortfall in off-street parking has been previously noted, and of course this has been exacerbated by the impact of 5 months closure of Warwick Road on income from Fisherman's Car Park, which was nothing we could do about that, I'm afraid. So, if there are any questions or queries, happy to take them.
Any questions for Councillor Curtis? If not, are you happy to propose the recommendations as written in the agenda?
I recommend that the actual net variance at period 2 and an estimated revenue outturn for 24-25 are received. Any issues identified for further consideration be addressed by a further report to the Cabinet or to myself as portfolio holder, and that the write-offs contained within paragraph 1, 2, 3 be noted. Thank you, Leader.
And I do need somebody to second it. Councillor Rice is seconding it this time. And are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on then, our part C is issues arising from overview and scrutiny committee. Councillor Crump.
3 very quick items. We feel that Severn Trent be invited to a separate meeting of OC to discuss sewage management. We felt that the protocol for travel encampments be shared with members, and that was done immediately by portfolio holder who was in the meeting. And the parish charter, council charter, to be reviewed in 12 months. We would hope it was reviewed in 12 months' time, along with communications in general, and the parish champion being invited to input. So that was it. And the only other thing for Councillor Curtis, we were concerned about the net income from Fisherman's Car Park. The net income from Fisherman's Car Park. Don't worry about it.
Distracted.
That was for everybody's information. That was a joke.
I thought if you can't beat them, join them.
And moving swiftly onwards, there were no cabinet committees, and then party is on block items, and these are to be noted and approved on block unless a request is made at the start of the meeting, which none has been. So we just accept those on block. Are you all happy with that? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. And part F is other matters. And then we've got the, part F, other matters, and no urgent business that's been notified to me today. So at that point, we end the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.
Great.
Oh, yes, I do have to note that there is a special meeting, an extraordinary meeting of the Cabinet scheduled to take place on Monday, the 22nd of July. Please make sure that that is in your diary. Thank you very much indeed.